we aren't doing any sort of a victory lap. We know we are not done. This is a temporary solution.
That was the director of Phoenix's Office of Homeless Solutions late last month, as the large homeless encampment known as the Zone was days away from being cleared out. The 6-block area west of downtown is now virtually empty. So where did the hundreds of homeless people who once called that home end up? Joining us is Helen Rummel. She covers housing insecurity and homelessness for the Arizona Republic. Welcome to Square Off.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's start at the beginning, the court case that triggered the clearing of the zone. Just give us a quick summary of what happened there.
Yeah, so last year, neighboring business owners and neighboring residents who lived near the zone brought this lawsuit to the city saying that they felt that the homeless encampment had become a public nuisance and that more should be done to handle it. And
so the judge issued a ruling, a final ruling, fairly recently. How'd that go?
Yeah, so the judge released his post-trial ruling on the lawsuit saying that the city had until November 4th to permanently clear the homeless encampment of any remaining structures or tents there. And that comes after the city had already been working to clear the area block by block, but definitely limited the time that they had to make sure that no one was living there.
Yeah, they put them on pretty short notice, even though they knew this day was coming and that lawsuit was not going their way. So here we are, 3+ weeks later. How did it go? Where did how many people were in the zone at the time the clearing began?
Yeah, so the Human Services Campus, which is a collection of nonprofits near where the zone is, right at the center, they had been counting the number of people every week that were living in the zone, and in the summer it was close to around 1,000 people living in a mile radius there. And the city did manage to clear everyone out of the area within a couple days of their deadline. They were actually ahead of the deadline by a bit. And they expedited that process that they had already been doing since May, clearing it block by block and providing shelter beds for people who lived there. And now, as you said, there are no longer people living in the area.
You mentioned something that not many people know about. There's a reason the folks were down there in that area west of downtown. It's because of the Human Services Campus. There were nonprofits there that helped them.
Yes. Yeah, so like I said, the Human Services Campus has around 15 nonprofits right there to provide help for people experiencing homelessness. And while, a lot of those people are still returning to the campus to make sure that they get those really critical resources, they are no longer living.
But also many businesses and people live nearby who were not happy living next to it and what that had become over the years. So what can you tell us? What does the city know about where all these folks have gone?
Yeah, so around 80% of the people who were offered services by the city, so every person that interacted with the city, 80% of them accepted shelter. So that is around 585 people who accepted shelter from the city, but that is not everyone. So while a good majority of the people were living there are now in shelter beds in the city, some of them have moved to other areas. There have been reports of people moving into nearby neighborhoods and other streets, and the city is aware of that and said that they are taking action to make sure that services are provided to those people as well.
I live in central Phoenix, and I can tell you it is noticeable that there are more homeless people on the streets. Certainly not encampments, but small little groups of them as they look for a place to go. You mentioned shelter beds. What are those shelters? Are they hotels? What exactly are they?
Yeah, so there's a variety of shelter beds that were provided to people. One thing that the Office of Homeless Solutions in Phoenix told me was that throughout this process they tried to offer a variety of options for people who may be needing different things out of their shelters, and so a good majority of them are at the Washington Street shelter here in Phoenix, which is run by St. Vincent de Paul. Some of them, like you said, are at renovated hotel rooms and other shelter spaces, but that is the minority of people in hotels. Most of them are in a congregate bed, a congregate shelter bed. And so for people who may not know what that is, it's just generally a larger shelter for people all in one room where they're around a lot of people. And so the city, aware that that's not everyone's first choice, is trying to come up with some other alternatives to a congregate shelter bed as well.
And there is a sort of permanent solution in the works, a campus of sorts a few blocks west of where the folks are now at 15th Avenue in Jackson. How is that coming along? Are any people there now?
Yeah, so that is the structured campground, also known as the safe outdoor space. And around or 24 people are currently living there. The city just opened it up a few weeks ago and is welcoming people in. So that structured campground provides people with a tent and a campground space, as well as an air-conditioned facility for people to eat meals. And they're also partnering with local nonprofits to provide medical care and all kinds of services to make sure people are successful when leaving.
Now, many of these folks have mental health issues, substance abuse issues. What kind of help are they getting with that now that they've cleared out from being near facilities that might provide that help?
Yeah, so the city has had partnerships with nonprofits here in the city that do provide mental health services. Obviously, those are very critical, especially during this time of a lot of change for these people who were living in the zone. And so one of those groups is Community Bridges Incorporated. They were providing some mental health services when the city was doing these block-by-block cleanups. There will continue to be partnerships with them, and also a medical provider with a nonprofit medical provider, Circle the City, does provide a lot of mental health and behavioral health services, and they will be on site at the structured campground providing both medical care and behavioral health care.
What are advocates for the homeless saying about how this is playing out now about 3 weeks in?
Yeah, so I've heard some concerns. Obviously, people are really happy that there are more people in shelter. That is a good thing, but they are really concerned about the issues that this may cause in the long term, as a lot of these people's lives have been really disrupted. There was a lot of community that was at the zone, and those people don't have that sense of community anymore. They've really changed. Their lives have changed a lot since then. And so there is concern that there could be an increase in drug overdoses, of heat-related illness, of illness in general, because a lot of that disruption that caused.
And there are taxpayers who want to know how much this has cost.
Yes, so the city
hasn't been cheap.
No, the city invested $20 million roughly to clear the zone, and then another $13 million to provide a space at the structured campground as well. So most of that money went toward providing shelter space and other services for people who were living in the zone.
Does the city have a vision of what this will look like 6 weeks, 6 months from now?
Well, that's hard to say. I know the city has been very optimistic. They say that there is a lot more work to be done, but they are happy with the 80% of people who accepted shelter space. Something I do want to note is that while the office is working toward getting some numbers that show where these people went, that 500 some number that we have right now, they don't have it yet. So that number comes from all of the people cleared from the zone since May, and it's hard to say just how many of those people are still in shelter. Once we get those numbers back, I think we'll have a much better sense of how successful this whole operation was. If the majority of those people are exiting homelessness and are finding long-term housing, I think that will be encouraging, but we don't have those numbers just yet.
Still a work in progress. Helen Rummel, thank you so much for your reporting, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And during the season of giving, if you'd like to help homeless people, the City of Phoenix and service providers are encouraging what they call healthy giving, healthy and sustainable gifts instead of street donations. You can get more information at givesmartaz.org. When we come back, an author shares his 800-mile journey into Arizona's past and his own. But first, you'll be hearing a lot about the child care cliff in the new year, what families with kids need to know about it. Stay with us.